Welcome to another recap of Haikyuu, where we continue the journey of Hinata and others. Previously, we saw former rivals Shoyo Hinata and Tobio Kageyama unite to rebuild Karasuno High School's volleyball team, overcoming early defeats through rigorous training and the development of powerful new offensive strategies. Their relentless growth ultimately culminates in a grueling, multi-set final match against the powerhouse Shiratorizawa Academy to secure a coveted spot at the national championship. Hinata is eating his second breakfast after morning practice when he heads to class with his friend Achan. They stop outside the school to look at a banner congratulating the boys' volleyball team for making it to nationals. Kyoko calls out to Hinata and reminds him to tell the other first years about team measurements later. Kageyama shows up and challenges Hinata to see who has the higher spike point. Hinata agrees, and they set 3 curry buns as the prize while arguing like usual. Achan wonders how they even work well together. Later, the team gets measured. Hinata is happy to find out he's grown to 164.2 centimeters, but then feels bad when Yamaguchi says he's 180 centimeters and Kageyama is 181.9 centimeters. Hinata cheers himself up by saying he grew more than Kageyama. Then Tsukishima shows up at 190.1 centimeters, which annoys both Hinata and Kageyama. The team messes around until Daichi tells them to calm down. In the gym, they test their jumping reach. Tsukishima gets 334 centimeters first. Kageyama beats that with 337 centimeters. Hinata jumps last and reaches 333 centimeters, losing the bet and tying with Asahi. Asahi gets a bit competitive, and Nishinoya explains that Hinata jumps higher now because he fully trusts Kageyama's sets. Then Takeda gathers everyone and announces that Kageyama has been invited to the All-Japan Youth Training Camp. Everyone congratulates him. Hinata wonders if he got invited too, but he didn't. Tsukishima teases him about it. Takeda also announces that Tsukishima has been invited to a special first-year camp. Tsukishima tries to refuse, but Daichi signs him up anyway. Hinata feels left behind and frustrated. Later, he overhears a joke about sneaking into the camp and actually decides to do it. The next day, Kageyama heads to his camp in Tokyo. Meanwhile, Hinata secretly shows up at the first-year camp without an invitation. Everyone is surprised, and Tsukishima gets annoyed at him for doing something so reckless. Back at Karasuno, the team finds out and reacts with shock. The coaches call Hinata and scold him, telling him to come back. Hinata explains he just wants to learn and improve. Suddenly, Coach Washijo allows him to stay, but only as a ball boy. At the same time, Kageyama arrives at the youth camp and meets top players. He's excited but also a bit overwhelmed. At the first-year camp, Hinata accepts his role as a ball boy and introduces himself, ready to learn however he can. With about a month left before the spring tournament, Ukai tells the team to take serving more seriously. He wants them to serve like they're in a real match, not just casually during practice. While they train, he tells Takeda he's going to visit an old senior in Yamagata and will stop by Shiratorizawa too. He also mentions that the older Ukai is in the hospital, but says it's probably nothing serious. At the first-year training camp, the coaches tell the players to work together and pair up with people of different skill levels. Since Hinata isn't an official player there, he ends up helping as a ball boy with 2 others, Sagai and Akakura. They talk about how tall Hyakuzawa is and how surprising it is that he made the camp despite being new to volleyball. During practice, Hinata almost joins the drills out of habit, but gets stopped by Coach Washijo, who reminds him he's only there as a ball boy. Hinata apologizes and goes back to collecting balls. He keeps getting yelled at for being slow, even when he tries his best. Some coaches watching wonder why Hinata is even allowed to stay if he can't participate. They mention that Washijo usually doesn't like shorter players and think maybe he's just being strict after losing to Karasuno. After practice, Hinata stays behind and tries to practice on his own. He struggles with a jump serve and starts feeling like he's falling behind compared to his teammates, who all have specific strengths. Tsukishima finds him and tells him to stop messing around and get ready to leave. Hinata tries to apologize, but Tsukishima brushes it off and teases him. Later, Ukai talks to Hinata and tells him he shouldn't have caused trouble, even if his intentions were good. He admits Hinata is behind others, but says that's not an excuse. Still, he encourages Hinata to make the most of the situation and find something he can learn, even as a ball boy. Back at school, Takeda reminds Hinata that improvement takes time and effort from the basics. Tanaka and Nishinoya joke around with him, but also support him and tell him to learn as much as he can. On the second day of camp, Hinata continues helping out, but struggles to keep up with the balls during practice. He's impressed by the other players instead of competing with them. Later, the first years play a practice match against older players and lose easily. Hinata watches and keeps score. Tendo finds out Hinata wasn't invited and laughs about it, while Ushijima simply asks what he's doing there. Back at Karasuno, the team continues practicing. Ukai seems a bit worried about Hinata, but trusts that this experience might help him grow. At the camp, Hinata starts feeling frustrated and confused about his role. After thinking about everything, he realizes he needs to change how he looks at things and figure out what he can learn from this situation. Hinata comes out of the storage room feeling more focused. Ushijima and Tendo notice his sudden change, with Tendo joking that it's kind of creepy. Hinata knows he's not important right now and isn't even on the court, but he decides to work harder anyway. While watching a practice match from above, Hinata starts noticing things he never paid attention to before. He sees how players react to spikes and realizes he usually freezes instead of moving early. He also notices how good defenders can predict where the ball will go by reading the spiker's body. During a serve, Hinata watches a libero do a small hop right before reacting. This reminds him of something he learned back in middle school from a tennis friend, the split step. It's a quick jump to reset your body and react faster. Hinata tries it when a spike comes his way and actually manages to move in time and stop the ball, even though he gets hit in the face and ends up with a nosebleed. Still, he's happy it worked. After that, Hinata keeps watching more carefully. He realizes he's always just chased the ball before, but there's a lot more going on in the game that he can learn from. Later, when practice ends, Washijo tells Hinata he won't get food or a place to stay since he wasn't invited. The others notice how harsh that is, but Hinata just keeps going and does his tasks like cleaning. Some of the first years stay back to practice, and Hinata offers to help by collecting balls. He even convinces Goshiki to join by praising his skills. They end up playing a small game, and Hinata focuses on defense. He starts trying to predict where spikes will go based on the set and the blockers. He doesn't get it right at first, but slowly improves. After practice, Hinata feels really hungry and starts thinking about proper nutrition. He calls Ukai, who tells him to focus on protein, carbs, and rest. Hinata listens and heads home. The next day, back at camp, Hinata keeps improving. He's still not perfect, but now he's thinking more and reacting better. One of the coaches notices that he's starting to combine his natural athletic ability with actual game awareness. Meanwhile, at the youth camp, Kageyama is playing with top players and holding his own, though he still has moments to adjust. Back at Shiratorizawa, Hinata keeps practicing as a ball boy but treats it like a real game. His effort stands out so much that even his teammates start feeling pushed to try harder. During one drill, Hinata perfectly reads a spike and catches it cleanly. But right after that, he loses focus for a second and gets hit painfully, reminding him to stay sharp. Later that night, Tsukishima surprisingly asks Hinata to join him for extra practice, which completely catches Hinata off guard. Since it's not official training, Hinata can finally participate. He's excited and even tells the other first years that Tsukishima is joining. At the youth camp, Kageyama eats dinner with another player, Chigaya, who tries to talk to him but struggles because Kageyama isn't very chatty. Sakusa joins them and asks how Karasuno beat Shiratorizawa. Kageyama explains that players like Tsukishima and Hinata helped stop Ushijima. Sakusa gets curious and asks a lot of questions. Kageyama then bluntly says Sakusa seems more normal than expected, which surprises everyone. Later, some coaches talk about how Washijo might be changing his mindset after losing to Karasuno. They think he now recognizes Hinata's potential even if he doesn't show it openly. Back at the camp, Hinata joins a small practice game. He manages to score against Tsukishima, surprising others who thought he was just a ball boy. More players join in, and the level gets more competitive. Tsukishima realizes Hinata is good at reading blocks and wants to practice against him more, since nationals will be much tougher. At the youth camp, Kageyama continues playing with top players. He adjusts his sets based on what spikers want, which impresses others. He also watches Hoshiumi, who may be short but jumps incredibly high and plays with a lot of confidence. Hoshiumi later asks Kageyama if he's impressed, and Kageyama says he is, but also calls him a good reference point, which confuses him. Atsumu shows up and jokes that Kageyama acts too proper on the court, which annoys Kageyama. Back at Shiratorizawa, Hinata keeps working hard as a ball boy and observes everything closely. He starts understanding players like Kunami, who saves energy and only puts in effort when needed. During 2-on-2 drills, Hinata watches how certain players create more time for themselves during plays. Hayakazawa struggles during these drills and feels like he's falling behind. Later, he tells Hinata that maybe Hinata should have been invited instead. Hinata disagrees and says they both should have been invited. He also points out that being tall is actually a huge advantage and something you can't train, unlike skills. Hinata encourages Hayakazawa and gives him a simple tip: stay calm and take things slower when things get messy. In the next game, Hayakazawa follows this advice, plays more relaxed, and manages to score a strong point, surprising everyone. Hinata cheers for him, happy to see it work. Meanwhile, other players start noticing Hinata more, especially how seriously he's observing and learning. The scene ends with Kageyama at the youth camp, looking deep in thought after everything he's experienced. Kageyama stands alone, thinking about his past. He remembers middle school, when his teammates stopped trusting him and refused to follow his sets. He also recalls Oikawa warning him that if he didn't understand what his teammates needed, he would go back to being the king of the court. The coaches at camp notice he seems off, but also say that even geniuses have flaws, and that's what makes them interesting. At Shiratorizawa, the first years play more 2-on-2 games. Hinata watches closely and starts predicting plays, like when Kunimi tries a surprise setter dump. He's starting to read the game much better. The others also notice Hayakazawa improving, especially with Hinata's help. Even though Hayakazawa is still weak in defense, his height and reach make him dangerous. During one rally, Tsukishima smartly uses a soft block instead of going all out, showing how much he's thinking about strategy. Hinata notices these small details and even compliments Tsukishima, though Tsukishima still looks annoyed. Later, they hear that Coach Saito got food poisoning, so the first years will play one last match against the third years. Hinata keeps watching instead of playing, focusing especially on Ushijima. After the game, Hinata actually goes up to Ushijima and asks how he thinks during receives. Everyone is surprised he has the confidence to ask. Goshiki gets told off by Shirabu for being too prideful and not taking initiative like Hinata. That pushes him to go ask Ushijima for advice too. At the youth camp, Kageyama plays in a game where players switch positions. He even spikes and does well, showing his versatility. The coaches praise how adaptable everyone is. Kageyama starts feeling the high level around him and realizes he's improving too. Later, Atsumu talks to Kageyama and says he might actually be better suited as a spiker because he seems tense as a setter. Kageyama doesn't like that and insists he's a setter. When he asks about being called a goody two-shoes, Atsumu says it just means he's serious and honest. As the camp ends, players say their goodbyes. Atsumu tells Kageyama they'll meet again at Nationals. Kageyama leaves with a lot to think about. Back at Shiratorizawa, the first-year camp also ends. Hinata is excited to return to his team. The players exchange contacts and Kendaichi briefly talks to Hinata about Kageyama, noticing he's changed. Hinata says it's normal for teammates to clash and move forward. Later, the coaches talk about Hinata and agree that even without playing, he stood out the most because of his effort and attitude. The next day, Hinata and Kageyama meet at school and instantly race to the club room like usual. They start practicing together and talking about their camps. Kageyama mentions a really strong player he met and says he's way better than Hinata, which starts another argument. Finally, it's revealed that Karasuno's next practice match will be against Date Tech, and both teams get serious knowing what's coming. Hinata looks confused when Kageyama says he'll be able to jump higher, but before he can ask, Nishinoya shows up and greets them. Soon, everyone is back in the gym. Sugawara jokes that the two probably started fighting again, and Tanaka confirms it like it's normal. The team asks Kageyama about the youth camp, while Hinata gets teased about sneaking into one. Hinata also apologizes again for causing trouble earlier. Kageyama casually says Hinata wouldn't have done much without him anyway, which annoys Hinata. Practice starts with serving drills. Ukai has them aim for specific spots on the court. Asahi does well, but others are inconsistent. Kinoshida's jump float gives Nishinoya trouble, and Ukai explains that those serves are hard to predict, which is why they need to practice receiving them. Hinata notices Kageyama being quieter than usual. When Kageyama serves, Hinata uses the split step he learned at camp and gets into position, but the serve is so strong it knocks him over. Still, everyone is surprised because it looked like he reacted on purpose. After practice, Hinata asks Kageyama about the jump higher comment. Kageyama asks him to hit some sets, but Daichi tells them to go home and rest. They promise to keep it short. Kageyama explains that Hinata's jumps are fast, but unstable. He says if Hinata improves his balance, he'll have more control in the air. Hinata doesn't really understand at first, but Kageyama tells him to put more weight on the balls of his feet before jumping. They try it, but Daichi stops them again before they can do much. The next day, Hinata seems a bit quieter than usual, thinking more about what he learned. Kageyama also seems off. Ukai asks him about it, and Kageyama brings up being called a goody two-shoes. Ukai tells him not to worry and just focus on giving sets that are easy to hit. Soon, Date Tech arrives for a practice match. They look just as intimidating as before. Koganagawa greets Hinata and Tsukishima, while Aone quietly focuses on Asahi. The match starts, and Karasuno quickly faces Date Tech's strong blocking. Even with Hinata acting as a decoy, Asahi's spike gets stopped by a triple block. Ukai explains that Date Tech uses a bunch block, where blockers group together and move based on the set. It's very effective, but has some weaknesses against fast plays. Karasuno tries to adjust. Hinata manages to score once, but the blockers are already getting touches on the ball. Kageyama starts feeling the pressure from their defense. In one rally, he sets to Daichi, but Date Tech blocks it again. Kageyama realizes their blocking is forcing him to avoid certain options. Instead of getting discouraged, he actually starts enjoying the challenge. The rallies continue, with both teams making strong plays. At one point, Nishinoya pulls off a great save, but suddenly Kageyama yells that he's in the way, catching everyone off guard. The play continues and Tanaka scores a point. Nishinoya asks why Kageyama said he was in the way, and Kageyama explains that Nishinoya accidentally blocked the path for a back row attack. Surprisingly, Nishinoya just accepts it and says it's true. Everyone else is a bit shocked, but they move on. The game continues, and Date Tech's blocking is really strong. They keep stopping Karasuno's attacks and even take the first set. During the game, Kageyama starts getting more blunt. At one point, he tells Asahi to just score already. After losing the set, Kageyama gets frustrated and says his sets are good enough and the spikers should do better. Right after saying that, he realizes it sounded like his old king of the court attitude from middle school. He panics, but before he can apologize, Hinata steps in. Hinata basically says no one cares about that nickname and that if Kageyama talks in an annoying way, they just ignore him. Tanaka and Tsukishima admit they do the same. Asahi calmly asks Kageyama to just speak more nicely. Kai reminds Kageyama that being a good setter is about making it easy for the spikers, and that requires communication. Kageyama starts thinking about all the advice he's gotten before and realizes he needs to adjust. In the second set, Kageyama experiments with higher sets, especially for Tsukishima. At first, it doesn't work and they lose another set. It's clear Kageyama is still thinking about his past and trying to improve at the same time. As the match goes on, things start to click. Tsukishima adjusts to the higher sets and begins spiking from a higher point, which helps him avoid blocks. It turns out he improved this skill during the training camp when dealing with high tosses. Tanaka also scores by using the block to his advantage, but Kageyama tells him he's getting sloppy and might need to rest. Tanaka doesn't like it, but understands Kageyama is trying to help. Karasuno slowly improves their coordination, even though Date Tech keeps applying pressure with strong blocks and serves. At one point, Hinata gets completely stopped by a triple block, showing how tough Date Tech is. Even so, Karasuno manages to stay competitive. Ukai notes that Date Tech is getting stronger and could be a serious threat in the future. Near the end of the fourth set, Date Tech notices that Hinata isn't rushing in like usual. Instead, he stays in line with the others. Karasuno runs a synchronized attack, and Asahi scores off a block to win the set. Kai explains that Hinata normally moves faster than everyone else, so he stands out. But now that he's blending in, it makes things harder for blockers, especially against a team like Date Tech that relies on reading plays instead of guessing. Tsukishima points out that Date Tech doesn't panic, even when they see Hinata's quick attack. They stay calm, keep their formation, and usually get at least 2 blockers up. Their plan is simple: limit Hinata's options and wear him down over time. Still, if Hinata scores a few times, even they might start hesitating. Ukai admits that Hinata's super-fast quick attack is impressive, but against experienced blockers, speed alone isn't enough. Hinata realizes his real strength is being unpredictable, while Kageyama knows he has to keep adjusting too. As the game continues, Hinata mixes things up more. At one point he stays hidden, then suddenly goes for a quick and scores because the blockers hesitate. His movement adds confusion, and Kageyama's precise sets make it even harder for the other team to keep up. By the 5th set, Karasuno is leading. Tsukishima explains that even if Hinata scores just once like this, it forces Date Tech to pay more attention to him, which opens chances for others like Asahi and Tanaka. That's the real advantage. Later, the match drags on and players start getting tired. Kageyama notices Tsukishima's fatigue and adjusts his sets. Tanaka tries new shots but struggles a bit, though Kageyama surprisingly gives him some encouragement. Near the end, Hinata tricks the blockers by acting like he'll go for a quick, but Kageyama sets to Asahi instead, and it works perfectly. Karasuno wins another set, tying the overall practice match. After the game, everyone cools down. Koganagawa asks Kageyama about training his fingers, and Kageyama explains how he strengthens them instead of using tape. Later that night, some players stay to practice. Nishinoya works on his weaker overhand receives, even though he struggles. He says it's worth trying new things instead of staying comfortable. Hinata goes home and practices alone, working on his ball control. His sister joins briefly, and he shows her the basics. She notices how much better he's gotten, saying he and the ball now feel like best friends. Daichi has a weird dream where the volleyball team disappears and the gym gets taken over by the basketball club. He wakes up confused, but realizes it was just a dream. Later that day, he meets Sugawara, Asahi, and Kyoko for a New Year shrine visit. They pray and pick fortunes. Daichi and Sugawara get good ones, while Asahi gets a bad one and starts stressing. He admits he asked for a lot of things like wins, his future, and even his neighbor's dog's health. Kyoko calmly tells them they'll be fine without relying on luck, which actually helps everyone feel better. There's a short look at what others are doing. Kageyama goes for a run, Nishinoya plays a traditional game with his grandfather, and others are just relaxing. Still thinking about his dream, Daichi goes to check the gym and is relieved to see everything normal. He finds Hinata, Kageyama, Tanaka, and Nishinoya there by chance and tells them to go home and rest before the tournament. On the way back, Daichi runs into Ikejiri, who says he watched their match on TV and encourages him. Daichi admits he's nervous about nationals, but feels better knowing people are supporting them. The next day, Karasuno arrives in Tokyo. Everyone is excited, especially seeing the Sky Tree. They drop their bags at a small inn, not the fancy hotel Tanaka hoped for, and head to practice. Some players start feeling nervous, Asahi overthinks, and Hinata messes up a bit. That night, Coach Ukai shows them a video of their best plays called I'm Awesome. Instead of studying opponents, he wants them to remember how good they are. It works. Some players feel more confident after watching it. Later, Hinata and Kageyama want to go for a run, so Enoshita makes Tsukishima go with them on a bike to keep things under control. Back at the inn, everyone relaxes in their own way, some studying, some rewatching the video, and some just trying to calm down. In the bath, Yachi talks to Kyoko and learns she used to be a track athlete and has scars from hurdles. Kyoko says Yachi is the first person she's been able to talk to this openly, which means a lot. The next day at the arena, Hinata is super excited. They run into other players, including familiar faces like Bokuto and Nakoma. There's a lot of energy and small interactions before the matches begin. Finally, the opening ceremony starts. Karasuno walks onto the court with the other teams. Hinata and Kageyama feel excited and ready. It's time to play at Nationals. Karasuno is getting ready for their first match. Takeda notices the players aren't as nervous as before, but things speed up when Ukai gets a call saying their game will start sooner than expected. Before leaving, Hinata and Tanaka go to the bathroom. While they're gone, Yamaguchi watches their bags, but gets distracted for a moment. During that time, a kid accidentally takes Hinata's bag. At the stadium, some players like Daichi and Asahi are nervous. Hinata then realizes his bag is missing and his shoes were inside. He had borrowed that bag from his little sister, and it looks like a common kid's bag, which explains the mix-up. They confirm the bag is still at the gym, but no one is free to go get it. Kyoko steps up and decides to go herself. Yachi offers, but Kyoko insists she can handle it. She heads off, remembering her past as a track athlete and how she ended up becoming the team manager. Over time, she had learned everything on her own and slowly felt like part of the team. Back at the court, Ukai warns the players that the floor and ceiling are different, so they'll need to adjust. During warm-ups, Hinata struggles without his shoes and gets distracted easily. Kageyama, on the other hand, stays calm and focused. Kyoko finds the bag, but misses the bus back and has to run. She pushes herself and makes it back just in time, throwing the bag to Yachi. Hinata is super relieved and excited to have his shoes again. The match starts and Kageyama's first serve goes out. Karasuno struggles early as they adjust to the court and their nerves. Kageyama's sets to Hinata are off at first, and their timing isn't right. Tsubakihara takes the lead, using smart serves and strong attacks, especially from their ace, Teradamari. Karasuno slowly fights back. Yamaguchi is subbed in early and does well with his serves, helping the team recover some points. Kageyama starts to regain his rhythm. Even though a few sets are still off, the team begins sinking again. Finally, Kageyama delivers a perfect set to Hinata, who lands a clean, quick attack. It surprises everyone and shows Karasuno is back on track. Kageyama starts playing really well and connects perfectly with Hinata on a quick attack. Everyone notices how fast Hinata is, especially since he's one of the shortest middle blockers. In the crowd, Atsumu Miya is watching and can tell Kageyama is playing differently compared to before. He's also impressed by Hinata. The game keeps moving fast. Karasuno runs a synchronized attack, and Kageyama even surprises everyone with a setter dump. His teammates joke about it, but it works. He keeps serving aggressively, and even after serving, he rushes in and sets quickly to Hinata again, catching the other team off guard. Tsubakihara calls a timeout to reset. Their coach reminds them not to focus only on Hinata and to stick to their own strengths. Back in play, both teams trade strong attacks. Tsukishima gets some important touches on blocks, and Asahi scores with powerful spikes. At one point, Hinata tries to receive a strong spike, but gets hit in the chest. It still works out, and Karasuno scores anyway. People notice that Hinata is starting to read plays better instead of just reacting. Later, Tsukishima ends up setting the ball when Kageyama can't. His sets aren't perfect, but he puts in effort, and Asahi finishes the play with a strong hit. Karasuno takes the lead. Hinata keeps being active everywhere, even in the back row. He pulls off a quick back attack, which Sugawara jokingly names the back minus tempo. The team has fun with the name, and Hinata is excited about it. There are some mistakes. Hinata misses a serve, and Kinoshita also sends one out when subbed in. Still, Karasuno reaches set point. In a surprising moment, Tsubakihara's nervous pinch server messes up an easy underhand serve and hits his own teammate in the head, giving Karasuno the first set. Even then, his teammates support him instead of blaming him. In the second set, that same player, Himekawa, comes back more confident. He uses a tricky serve that goes high and messes with Karasuno because of the gym lights. He even scores a couple of service aces, putting pressure on them. Karasuno calls a timeout and adjusts. Soon, they handle his serve better, and Asahi scores to stop his streak. The match stays close. Asahi even gets a service ace, and both teams keep pushing hard. There's a small mismatch between Kageyama and Tsukishima at one point, but Daichi steps in and scores to keep them in the lead. Near the end, Sugawara comes in to serve. He stays calm, makes a smart play, and helps set up the final rally. Hinata acts as a decoy, pulling blockers away, which gives Asahi the opening he needs. Asahi spikes and scores, winning the match for Karasuno. Fukurodani starts their first match against Eiwa High. At first, Bakuto goes for a spike, but it gets received and Eiwa scores. Fukurodani falls 2 points behind, and it's clear Bakuto has slipped into one of his low moods again. Even the Eiwa crowd feels relieved, thinking Bakuto won't be as dangerous as expected. Coach Yamiji calls a timeout, and Akashi figures out the issue. Bokuto is upset because they aren't playing in the main arena. His teammates are annoyed because this is a pretty simple reason to lose focus. Akashi labels it as one of Bokuto's weaknesses. He gets too affected by attention and stage. Meanwhile, Karasuno is also watching other matches. Daichi sees their old captains, Tashiro and Kurokawa, in the stands. They congratulate Karasuno and later talk with the team. Kurokawa asks about Kageyama and Hinata, and Daichi explains their roles and growth. He also realizes he's been more nervous than he thought about nationals. Karasuno watches Nekoma play next and sees how strong their defense is. Nekoma wins the match through steady receiving and smart plays. Afterward, the teams briefly meet and wish each other luck moving forward. Back in Fukurodani's match, Bokuto is still off at first, but Akashi keeps guiding him calmly. He explains that the smaller arena actually means all attention is on Bakuto. That helps a bit, but what fully snaps Bakuto back is seeing Hinata in the crowd wearing a Way of the Ace shirt and cheering for him. Bokuto gets fully energized again and starts scoring normally, helping Fukurodani take the win. Then Hinata and Yamaguchi come face to face with Hoshiumi from Kamomedai, another strong small player from the youth camp. Kageyama introduces him. Hoshiumi immediately sizes Hinata up, asking about his height and jump. Both recognize each other as rivals. Karasuno watches Kamomedai's match where Hoshiumi shows amazing speed and skill, earning the nickname Little Giant. Hinata is clearly motivated but also realizes how strong top-level players really are. Kamomedai wins easily. Hoshiumi gets annoyed when a reporter focuses too much on his height since he doesn't like being judged for it. Later, Kanoka from Niyama Girls Volleyball briefly meets Tanaka and wishes him luck. The team teases Tanaka about it, hinting he might have a crush situation, which leaves him completely shocked. This is where the story ends for now. If you want to watch the next part, consider subscribing so you never miss any updates from cinematic memory. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!